The home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. Random topic of the day. I get requests all the time from people. They ask me why I do not try to be on some of these other talk shows, a lot of these Oklahoma shows. I've gotten like 3 or 4 different names that usually keep popping up with me. And the reason why I don't go on those shows is those shows that have been named the most are, to me, disingenuous. And they try to go out of their way to be critical of Oklahoma sometimes when Oklahoma really doesn't deserve to be criticized. I criticize my team all the time. My team's Alabama. I have been critical of Alabama, but only when they deserve it. And see, these guys are sort of like R.J. Young. I will throw his name out there because he's a straight sellout. They're just like R.J. Young. They think if they're really critical of their own team that some big network like Fox Sports will notice them and they'll get a job with them, and they're basically just using their own fandom in a critical manner to get where they want. And that shit just don't fly. I mean, I just think it's sort of cowardly. You need to take up for your team when they deserve to be taken up for. Now, today's topic of the day is going to be the SEC maybe merging, not with the ACC like some people keep saying, but with the Big 12, the conference that actually stood by the SEC during all that COVID fiasco. Also, Greg Sankey had a few shots to take at the Big 10 in their recent expansion with Oregon and Washington. Let's talk about it. Another grand day in the college football neighborhood as we get closer to the season. I'm starting to salivate. I can feel it. I know y'all can too. And here they come, riding on in once again. It's the Outlaw Posse, now in effect. And the Outlaw Posse membership continues to grow by leaps and bounds. We got 2 more members mounting up and saddling up, and they're ready to get their badge and get deputized. And they are as follows: Hank and Butch Kaufman are now deputized. They're in the Outlaw Posse. They got their badge. And if you want your badge, you want to get deputized and get your 4 horseman shout out, which I'm about to do for those members of the posse, all you got to do is hit that join button next to the subscribe button. It's not $2.99 a month, 75 cents a week. And those 4 horseman members this week that are helping me with this college football invasion are as follows: Storm 4601. That Christian Fam channel, great religious channel, check that out. Daryl Madden and Dakota Green are the 4 horsemen of the week. Oh, also, I can be reached on Twitter at OCF Productions. Now, getting right to it here. People keep talking about the Big 12, not the Big 12, but actually the ACC and the SEC maybe merging. Or maybe the ACC being split up between the Big 10 and the SEC. But there's one thing that they keep forgetting, or there's one thing that they don't really think about, in my opinion. That's the Big 12. Now, I know the Oklahoma and Texas people may not be a big fan of this, but the Big 12 was the only conference that had the balls to stand up with the SEC during that COVID fiasco and actually say, hey, we're playing football. Big 10, Pac-12, you want to take your ball and go home? That's fine, but we're going to play. And they played. And the Big 12 stood by them. Because these 2 conferences are great, passionate fan bases across the board. And I saw an article today on Heartland, I think it was Heartland Sports. A lady named Andrea Catherine, who's supposed to be a Fox News Twitter personality. I don't know if that's self-proclaimed or if she actually is. It sounds like a fake name. Sounds more like one of them booger bear names that you get on Facebook sometimes from Nigeria. But she basically says in this tweet that the Big 12 is such a random, spastic conference, and just spastic, as in culturally spastic. I get tired of that word too, by the way. I mean, these podcasters out there, man, they just overuse the hell out of that word. Culture this, culturally that, culture. Ain't we all Americans? Come on now. Y'all get off that culture crap. You mean to tell me that Rutgers, she's going to call out the Big 12, and you got the Big 10 over here, it's got Rutgers and Oregon. Two completely different cultures, jackasses. So if you're going to call out one conference, little girl, you need to call out every conference. Now the SEC, they can claim that whole cultural geographically thing still because they're still pretty much geographically correct. And that's what Greg Sankey ended up taking a shot at the Big Ten about. But before I get to that, people keep taking shots at me and other podcasters out there because we talk about these realignments and stuff. And they get mad because they say, well, y'all don't really know what's going to happen. How y'all can't get on here and talk about that because y'all don't really know what's going to happen. You don't have to know that it's going to happen to be able to read between the lines and have that gut feeling. If you've been watching college football all your life, you don't have to have a degree from the journalism school of Missouri to know sports better than one of these media talking heads, as I say in my mantra all the time. The common Joe and the common Sally that know, even more so than all the media talking heads, because they do know more than those media talking heads. They got all that little book sense, but no common sense. And from my previous channel, back in the day, just proof. I was looking at my old channel that I used to have before this one, and I basically made a podcast about, the Big 12 poaching the Pac-12. And at that time, the Big 12 was, they were on the cusp of getting rated themselves. And Brett Yormark come in and saved the day by adding 4 teams. Pac-12 just stood pat while the Big 10 psyched them up, them and the ACC, and got them not to raid the Big 12. And now we see what happened with that. Well, I made that podcast almost 2 years ago. So, I didn't have ultimate proof that it was going to happen, but you could feel it. If you're a college football enthusiast, you don't have to have some special degree to know and to be able to read between the lines and be able to read people. So y'all get off of that elitist bullshit all the time. But Greg Sankey did say, he took a little shot. I don't know if I completely agree with Greg, but he basically making some looting comments about how the Big Ten is, and the Big 12 to some degree, helped destroy a 100-year-old conference. Okay? Now, Greg, y'all went out and took Texas A&M and Missouri, and then you turned around and took Texas and Oklahoma from the Big 12, Greg. And you wasn't a part of the Texas A&M Missouri thing, but you was damn well sure a part of the Texas Oklahoma thing. And that's almost as bad as what the Big 10 done in the Pac-12 when they took USC and UCLA. But I will agree with Greg on one thing, is that these conferences have got in their head now that they need to be in 4 time zones. I don't understand that. Why do you want to have to be in 4 time zones? Why would a West Virginia fan, for example, want to have to stay up till midnight or 1 a.m. to watch the completion of a game with possibly Oregon in the future in the regular season if the game's at Eugene and they have to schedule it based on Eugene time? What's the benefit in that, really? I mean, there's some benefits probably as far as you being exposed to more parts of the country, but is it really that big? I don't know, man. I don't think it is. I think Greg may be right in the fact that you don't need to expand just to expand for a time zone. I think that's the wrong way to go about it. I think they need to maybe even start contracting some of these teams and think about, as my buddy Kuz and I have discussed many times, think about some of the rivalries that you can, maybe cultivate and bring back or keep intact. Sort of like West Virginia and Pittsburgh in the backyard rivalry and that kind of deal. And Oklahoma State and their little Bedlam charity series that they do with Okie Pokey State, keep all that intact. So merging with the ACC, I don't think is what they should do. I think the Big 12 and the SEC should merge because those 2 conferences and their fan bases are passionate about football. They take it very seriously. Not overtly too seriously, although some of them probably do. But I just think that in the future that maybe the Big 12 and the SEC could merge and not just form a super conference, but form a super league. And eventually the Big 10, who's already basically merged with the Pac-12, they took 4 of their best teams, they can have their own little super league. Now, that's not to say that you can't have the Big 12 and the SEC merge and then that super league still go out and maybe take 2 or 3, maybe 4 teams from the ACC if they go by the wayside in a few years, which I think they will. But the only teams I would add, if you got the Big 12 and the SEC to merge at that point, the only 2 teams I would take from the ACC might be Florida State and Clemson, just because they have the football acumen that these conferences seem to seek. Although if I was them, I would start adding some basketball powers, because once you get too many powers from one sport in a conference, somebody's going to have to lose, and some fan bases aren't going to be very happy about that. But somebody's got to lose. So maybe go out and get a Duke, North Carolina, or somebody like that. But in the future, I think the Big 12 and the SEC should consider merging and forming their own Super League, and then let the Big 10 merge with whomever they want to, whether it be Notre Dame and some of the ACC schools. And they already got the Pac-12 for the most part, them and the Big 12. But you guys tell me what you think about all this. I mean, it's probably way down the road. It's probably 5, 6 years, maybe 10 years down the road. But drop it in the comment section and let me know what you think about all this. Also, there's a little heart down here. It's got a little dollar sign in it. If you want to make a one-time donation to the program, just hit that. Throw a few dollars in the coffers. And as I said before, you can also join the Outlaw Posse, get your badge, get deputized, get some of the perks that are coming down the pipe here pretty soon. That's now for $2.99 a month, 75 cents a week. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Also, I'm going to put a link to my Cash App if you want to cut the middleman out and give all the money to the show. You can do that as well. And I'm out of here. KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.